hello, come one, come all, or come zero, no matter the number. I welcome whomever decides to come over to Breeding Cases Paper Reading live stream. Episode 300. Oh, no, not 300, for fuck's sake. What am I talking about? 719. So, milestone right here. You only encounter 719 once in a lifetime, unless you start another series. So, I'm trying to justify this whole milestone, all right? This is a special day, all right? I don't give a fuck anymore. So, you ready? I got my glass of water ready right now. And on top of that, I got a bunch of like hair clippings from. Okay, so ever since I DIY'd my own haircut, I'm using this mirror in front of me that's behind the screen right here. I can show you here. Check this out. Right? You see it. You see it. So every single time I fuck up, and there'd be like a loose end. In fact, I think there's like at least 10 up there, but those wouldn't bother me as much as these ones on the side. Those are criminal, right? So I would feel one like when just randomly running my hand through my hair during a work shift, and I'd come back and I would spend 7 hours just thinking about that one fucked up part of my hair. Get this pair of scissors, clip it, and then put it into this trash can I have in my sink. It's just filled with like half of the hair I used to have. So my bathroom is a bit unsightly. My sister tries to wash her hands in the night. She's not looking where she's going. She might accidentally insert her wet hands into my hair. So fucking sorry about that in advance if that ever happens. But it won't, because we're going to Texas tomorrow. So you're going to see some Texan live streams. Good evening, JLJ, McBurgerness. All the fan favorites are back. Nice to see you again. I have to make it quick. I got to eat dinner, and I got to pack for tomorrow. We're leaving 6 a.m. tomorrow. I might have to make some pre-recordeds too. Remember, this series being back in a diminished form with frequent pre-recordeds is better than none at all. So, you're welcome. How are you guys doing, by the way? I know it's been a while. I know I abandoned it for a month. It's because the psychosomatic asthma, we didn't know where it came from. For all I knew, I had an allergic to papyrus. So we were just trying to take as many precautions as possible. I'm watching a Werner Herzog documentary. Isn't that the guy who invented like German sausages? No. German sausages have been around for like 2,000 years. I'm going to Google Werner Herzog. Don't tell me who he is. I'm actually... Oh, shit. I forgot to script for the day. It's a pretty solid 7.9 right now. Not too bad. Sorry, McBurgerness, but I beat you. Werner... I feel like he's just some politician. Please don't be boring. Oh, he's a filmmaker. What did he do? He made Grizzly Man. Okay. His films often feature protagonists with impossible dreams. Oh shit, that's me. I will never achieve what I want to achieve. I'll be perpetually dissatisfied. I'm a Werner Herzog character. He's a very good filmmaker. No, I actually got to check it out. I know you're a Poor Things hater, and that makes me lose respect for you, but maybe you can redeem yourself with Werner Herzog's good. Grizzly Man's dope. Hey, you guys got an agreement on something. That's good. Remember, you guys were fighting just a year ago. A lot of these movie posters look like they were made on like iMovie in 2007, but I think I'm looking at the wrong collection of ones. Yeah, Wrath of God, Enigma of Caspar Hauser, Heart of Glass, documentary. Oh, My Best Fiend. Invincible. I like all these names. I like that. Encounters at the End of the World, I've heard of. I've heard that one because I think my teacher, after he was busy showing us some National Geographic magazine covers with some African ladies' boobs on it, he showed us a documentary to show how dangerous snow is or whatever. So I remember that was notable. However, I was so obsessed with Planet Earth at the time that anything else would pale in comparison. So, whatever. You're watching that one right now. Is it good? I'm guessing it is good, right? Because you're like... There's like 14 films on that list. I happen to get the one you were watching. I'm such a prophet right now. Well, that's pretty good. And I'm like, that's a pretty good gauge that it is, in fact, not a shit documentary. In fact, that you're probably the one that got you to even talk about it in the first place. What is Encounters at the End of the World specifically about? It's about Antarctica, okay. And people who choose to spend time there. Yeah, you'd have to be really ambitious and have some pretty impossible dreams if you want to live in Antarctica permanently. And these are not fictional stories. These are actual real stories about real people, right? Yeah. So it's interesting that the Wikipedia article would say that like his films contain characters with impossible dreams. Like all of the documentaries just so happen to find some sort of protagonist type character with extraordinary ambitions for every single that'll determine whether or not he actually makes a movie if he finds a person like that. Ah, okay. His work is split 50 between documentaries and movies. Do both forms or do both mediums of film contain protagonists with impossible ambitions? Sure hope so. I want Werner to be nice and consistent. Let's see. In his narration, it'll not be a typical Antarctica film about quote fluffy penguins, but will instead explore the dreams of the people and the landscape. Again, about dreams and shit. You know, life is about ambition. I never really thought about that. Sorry, I keep thinking that somebody's like masturbating in the room next to me, but it's just our washing machine. So you know, when I was a kid, I would always get psyched out because every night was a challenge. Like, I get so scared of stuff for no reason. So my dad and I would have this whole system, right? And it was a foolproof system where I would tell my mother, and because my dad would always have late nights and he would always forget stuff, I told my dad to check on me in a little while and ask my mom to check on me in a teeny tiny minute. That was the exact wording I would use. It was like a contract every night that my parents would verbally sign. I highly doubt that they would ever even follow through on it. My mom would. My dad wouldn't because he would often forget. And that's why I think in the back of my mind I knew it. And so I would do that whole like in a little while thing. But I would be so scared, but I'd be tired anyway because I was a child and my circadian rhythms were actually healthy, unlike now. And I would fall asleep after the teeny tiny minute happened. My mom would just like leave, and often like 20 seconds later, she'd come back and, okay, this is my check in. Can I go to bed now? So that would happen. And after all that, I remember I would fall asleep. My dad would sometimes actually check on me, and I would just be completely sweaty because the way I would hide from the imaginary monsters I was making up in my head is I would just throw a blanket over my head and I would just hide underneath there, and that's how I'd sleep. And our air conditioning was completely broken sometimes, especially during the summer in Oregon. It got so fucking hot, so you best believe I had some rough nights. And yes, during the nighttime, it got very humid and warm. Sounds like my friend who is terrified 24/7. And you are a little older than me, so most likely this friend is probably a small man baby, so I feel a lot better about myself. I was around like from the age of like 2 to 8 when this was happening. So tell your friend that I challenge him to a thumb wrestle and I'll beat his ass. Um, but yeah, when I was a kid, that would happen, and I would make up tons of scenarios in my head. I read in a National Geographic kids book that zombies in movies never get tired because they're not alive, so they would just walk, and so you would try to run away, but they'd catch you anyways. And I never really thought about that critically. I would just think, oh yeah, that's totally true. National Geographic children's book that I bought from Barnes and Noble at the discounted price of $3. I'm totally fucking I'm totally doomed. However, I never think about the fact, like, what if I just lock myself in a phone booth? What if I just set the zombie on fire? You can kill zombies. I know the whole you can't kill something that's already dead, but I hadn't watched enough zombie movies at that time. So I never considered the fact, do I have like some shit, like some smegma on my screen? I never considered the fact that I could just actually obliterate the zombie to the point where even if it's still alive, like it's like I'll chop all of its limbs off and it can't do shit. Like there are tons of protocols, but 8-year-old me was an idiot and didn't actually think any of this shit through. So I would always just, I don't know, I would just imagine a zombie running after me in the middle of the night. And then also I imagined, like, because our washing machine would be going off every night. And so I just imagined, like, if some giant lumbering monster came at my doorway, it would sound exactly like a washing machine. So I wouldn't know which one's which. And on top of all that, you know, I hear stomping and a door creaking, and then I go outside and realize that the washing machine was never turned on that night. You know, that sort of scenario. So that's what that reminds me of. Little story of the night. And that bought us about 9 minutes of time, and we're actually getting pretty close to the end here. Mm. I had a very strange ghost encounter when I was a kid. Tell me about it. Type it in the group chat. I'm curious because I don't know exactly. Because again, I'm an agnostic. I don't know exactly what to think about religion. I think that there's a lot of things that are unexplained. I like to think about things very analytically and scientifically, but also beyond all that, I do think that there is a limit to what we can know. And so there's a lot of unknowns out there. So to even pretend with the limited info that we have to be certain about what's out there, it to me is foolish. So that's why I'm an agnostic. Like a lot of the Christians who claim that there is empirical proof that God's out there, I don't see that proof as empirical. I just see it as things and borderline tall tales written by people who had mental health crises and an awareness of mortality and wanted to tell stories, one, to gain popularity, and two, to help further the narrative that helped their mental health as well as others. And that's a good thing. That's why I love religion. But on the other hand, we don't know. They could be writings off the truth. I see no proof for it to be true, but I see no proof for it to be untrue, right? You see the like A to B to C thing. This is like elementary school shit. Okay, I thought I heard an ethereal scream and scratching outside the door when I was in the bathroom middle of the night and then stayed there for 5 hours. It was probably just a rusty door hinge, man. Probably wasn't even anything that important. You probably just like heard your mom farting in her sleep. That's probably it. That okay, I thought you actually like a ghost like fingered you. You like got ghost fingered by Michael Jackson or something. Like I thought that somebody but I mean when you were a kid, of course. Right? And hey, that could totally be something. But in my opinion, I think that maybe two styrofoam blocks accidentally rubbed against each other. So that's my prediction. An ethereal scream. What type of scream was it? Was it like a lady, guy, neither, like some sort of Slender Man monster creature? Non-binary monster? Like what scream did it sound like? Like say something from popular culture. Like was it like a Wilhelm scream? Probably not. But like let's zoom in on the details here. I want to get to the bottom of this. Like what's the auditory diagram of this scream? Also, JLJ, on the last paper stream, if you skip to the very end, I actually took what you said to heart. When you talked about lol cowing, I just imagined like a bunch of lactation metaphors. And what you said about lol cowing, it actually got to me, and I thought about it for a while, and I told Caden to stop. I can tell he didn't like it because he did the whole thing where he like ignored the stuff I was saying and was like intentionally distracting himself by getting into some conversation with another person on the stream, which was kind of annoying. But I hope I got through to him because again, he wasn't even like he's been doing it a lot less, but like I never made an clear, explicit message to him when I should have. That's like the main thing that someone in my position should do is to make things achingly clear to somebody who is doing something really fucking annoying. So that's what I did. If you skip to the end of the stream, and I believe it's relevant to you because you're the person who introduced that term, and the whole lactation metaphor in my head would not exist if it weren't for you. Thank you. My thesis from last night is I will not lactate for you. Amen. It was not human. I could tell it wasn't real. Also, the majority of the stories in the Bible confirm each other. I'm not denying that something within the Bible could be rooted in truth. However, from what I understand, and you can totally prove, because again, I don't have very strong opinions either way, but that's not gonna make me by default believe in the Bible being true. Because for one, a lot of the disciples who wrote these separate passages of the book knew each other personally. Not every single one, but from what I know, they knew each other personally. They were also engaging towards the same cause, written at different times about the same stories. And on top of all that, when I'm saying colleagues, not just like peers and all that, or maybe they're not, I don't know. But even so, if it's written at different times, like to me, that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. To me, that also doesn't prove anything either, because like if a story already exists written by a believer, that story causes for more believers to exist. Then someone writes an additional kind of like a mod onto the original vanilla Skyrim edition, right? I mean, these stories are written by followers of the prior versions of the story. Like to me, this is not like there is no coincidence that these things separately can exist. but they don't exist separately. To me, I believe that chronologically speaking, the latter versions of these Bible passages would not exist if it weren't for the earlier ones. It's a continuous work, and even in its time, I believe the Bible was famous, and if it wasn't known worldwide, which I don't think it was, but if it was not known worldwide, but it was at least known by people within that circle that was actively engaged in constructing the book. It could be hundreds of years apart, fine, but there will be believers. They existed for a very long time. Those believers likely added stuff onto the Bible, the pre-existing Bible, that logically tracked with the other stuff that existed before. Unconnected. Okay, well, you're going to have to explain that to me, because I refuse to believe, and I don't think that this is how it went down. And I just generally refuse to believe the idea that you have people who never met each other, and a guy later on in history who wrote a later version of the Bible who had never even heard of the prior editions of the Bible or any reference, any biblical reference to him. To me, that makes no fucking sense, especially when you're talking about the New Testament and when it was written. Christianity was like a household name at that point. So again, I'm not a religious scholar, so I don't know everything about this, but from what I know, it's implausible that like any of this shit can be completely unconnected, and that the people who wrote the later versions of the Bible or the later passages later in time had no idea what the earlier sections in the Bible were. To me, that's no coincidence. That's actual. That's just called knowing what a popular story is and adding on top of it. So to me, that does not prove the existence. Again, I am totally open towards the existence of God and all that. I'm not committing blasphemy. I am simply using my God-given critical thinking skills to think that way of thinking is silly, and I think that we got to find better ways of proving it. Because like the way I see it, I had friends who, and I totally ate dinner at people's houses, and those people claimed to have empirical proof, undeniable proof that God existed. And I am totally open to hearing it, and I totally believe that it could exist. But to me, if these Christians have this struggle of converting people to their cause, and they're so committed to convincing people, why wouldn't they just go out and show the empirical evidence they speak of? Because nearly every Christian I tell you, they'll just say, "Oh, just read the book, just read the Bible." And it's like, okay, but if it's something is really easy to grasp onto, that is an indicator that it's more true. The more you clutter stuff up, or if you refuse to show somebody a piece of evidence and just tell them, "Oh, read the whole thing, all 500 pages of it," to me, that indicates that there is less kind of logical soundness in your claim, right? Because if something is easily provable, it should be straightforward. In passage blank at page 300, it spoke of an artifact that totally exists and was discovered. Like, oh, you know what would be cool? Like if like this might, and I know the Shroud of Turin was proven to be fake, and I'm sure it could hypothetically exist, and I'm sure this actually happened. Now, we don't know what's fake and what isn't sometimes with these situations, and I know nothing about this subject, but it is possible that, like, say, if hypothetically, a piece of evidence that would totally convince me, if it were proven to be 100% true, right, by carbon dating and all that, DNA, found, Jesus's foreskin, proven to be his. But if you had a part of the Bible that spoke of an artifact or an event that left evidence, left physical, discoverable evidence, archaeologically visible evidence, if that's a phrase that exists, you should totally be able, and we found, like, say we uncovered an artifact that like actually tracked with something that was written about in the Bible, and it was proven to have existed back then, and it has like etchings in it that tracks with that, I would be like, dude, fucking like that's actual. And the thing is that we supposedly discovered, like even before they were proven to be a hoax, like those aliens from Mexico that we discovered, they were very convincing, and people were convinced aliens were real, and nobody gave two fucks. Everybody's so desensitized. They just went about their normal day. So I am totally under the belief that we could have discovered some conclusive proof that tracks with one of the supposed fictional artifacts, and it could be real. And nobody cares, and nobody would have told me about it. So I'm not saying I'm skeptical. I just haven't heard about it yet. That could totally exist. It's just, as I have not seen that yet. You'd have to give me an example. And I would think that the like dozens of Christians who have told me that it for sure exists empirically, they would give some sort of just grand slam proof like that, but they have not. They've just told me to read the entire book. I have read a good amount of the book, and I have gotten no actual empirical proof. You got to read the whole thing repeatedly. I had one guy tell me, "Oh no, you can't just skim it once. You have to read it at least 5 times to uncover the proof." And to me, that just seems like mentally tricking yourself into believing something. That sounds really offensive, but that's what it seems like to me. And I am totally like somebody who is open to the idea of God, and I love Christian values. I love Christian values so much. I think that any religion or any group of people gathering together can result in corruption. So people using this whole like institutionalizing narrative, I don't agree. Right, Christianity and the Bible will not work without faith, and I understand that. And to me, that is the crux of my argument. Not even against Christianity; it's my argument for Christianity. My argument for its existence is people like blind faith is a universal principle that, regardless of the specificity surrounding it, excuse me, let me drink my paper. Like to me, what people are trying to because people there are 2 types of people and 2 main types of Christians. Not in terms of corruption, because that's a whole other factor, but when it comes to believing, like why do you believe in God? There are 2 main reasons in popular culture and also in real life that I've seen. People who believe in God because it helps them. And they're saying, I believed in God, God helped me, cause effect. I'm totally cool with that. I love that. And, people who maybe even in the back of their minds, they recognize that a lot of religion is a mental health exercise. It's kind of like, it's like yoga with extra merch. It's like it's a mental health. It'll make you feel better, and it comes with your own book. You can do a bunch of stuff with it. And I'm not putting it down at all. In fact, I think that if you let religion consume you, that's a great way to put your focus on something. Say if you were dealt a bad hand in life, or if your brain happens to naturally go into different places. But then there are people who want to treat this thing that is very clearly based off faith. I believe you. I think you're right. Christianity will not work without faith. If you cannot have faith, it will not hold. I agree with that. And the reason I agree with that, it loops right back around to the same point I made about religion earlier. I just do not think that something that is logically based in history, and those are the second types of people I'm about to talk about, the types of Christians who will try to equate the Bible with actual history books. When, yes, the Bible is a type of history book, but it is not an objective telling of a story. It has not been proven as such. Not yet, and I do not believe it ever will be, because I believe not every single piece possibly, but I'm very certain that a big chunk of it was confabulated and exaggerated. And like to me, people who try to be extra logical about it and tell me that Christianity objectively exists and I just have to read the documents, aka the Bible. But then at the same time, people who say that like you need to have faith and that is how it works. I know that hinges on the whole idea that like, okay, supernatural entities exist, therefore faith is a real thing. But then logically speaking, even with that in place, why in the world would the universe be designed like that? Where you almost get punished for thinking critically and thinking for yourself and having your own mind. Bowing down to others, that can indicate something about you, right? So if you are somebody who naturally will believe what you're being told at face value and not use your critical thinking skills, you can sometimes get roped into activities that are not of your own doing. You will end up doing things outside of the realm of your own person. What I mean by that, to explain the fucking clusterfuck sentence I just said, is you can end up doing things that do not align with your values. And it's a very slippery slope too. This is well known about human beings. If you don't have your own mind and you're easily swayed by things like over-institutionalized religion, you can loop around into the slippery slope of potentially committing one of the 7 deadly sins. So, I understand this narrative that God has the thing of faith where like the supposed empirical data within the Bible will not become true unless you believe in faith. But logically speaking, if God and Jesus are all forgiving. Jesus is all forgiving, right? I know that is written, but God still wants the best for us, as indicated by the Adam and Eve story. He's not malicious towards us. He simply puts us through trials to test us. But then knowing our capabilities and knowing that we as a species can kind of fall into these inevitabilities, why in the fuck would he design a system where engaging in religion for life brings out certain proclivities within humans that are known to lead them towards committing more sins, which is not what God wants? To me, that's a fucked up system. So I can believe in a God and I believe in entities. I love Christian values for the most part. I love Christian values, but like I just don't understand why people have to do these mental gymnastics to kind of extend what is to me a mental health exercise into real history books when we simply do not have enough information to decide. That is why I am an agnostic. I am not an atheist, and I hate atheists so much. I just do not understand why people are trying to, they just can't accept the fact that we just don't have enough information to know for sure. And you can have limited information and still have well-rooted and valid faith in something that does not have empirical proof towards it. So why are you lying to us and saying that there is empirical proof that it exists when simply you could make the thesis of your statement, we do not have enough information to decide, so move on from that, and say, it's more of a moral issue. I disagree. I think that it's entirely an issue of just lying to people about what is objective and what is subjective. A choice to believe in something that has not been proven incorrect or correct, it's a non-falsifiable claim. I mean, that's not really, that can be based on an individual level, that can be based off morals. But when we as a group, the giant group that is the Christian nation, buys into at large this idea, that's based off a lot less morals and more off our inevitable proclivity to buy into things for varying reasons. But a lot of those, every single reason is an inevitability. Our inevitability to comprehend mortality, and as a result of that, to find coping mechanisms. And also our proclivity to, if we have something that runs in the family, a lot of family members will deviate and they'll be, angsty rebels, and they'll try to show their parents who's boss. I think emos are lame too. But also you have people who will just buy into the same thing their parents did. That's another big follower base. It was a part of my life since I was very young. So, the Bible warns against false preachers. Those people are not Christians. Well, yeah, I understand that. And, I'm sure that, to me, that's also another inevitability if we're speaking on those. Like, the Bible, to me, like the people who wrote it, or whoever wrote it, not enough information to decide. I think they know that if an idea like that's going to be widespread, people will take it, and bad actors they'll weaponize this thing that they know can control people to a degree. So to me, I'm not surprised. And again, that proves nothing. Like that doesn't negate my point. So like when there is simply not enough information to decide whether or not an entity exists, I'm so annoyed with just all these Christians just saying that the proof's in the pudding. Conversation over. We've, the actual deducing and critical thinking part of this entire religion thing, it's all over. We already did that. We already proved he exists 100%. Now the only job left to us is to convince them that he exists. But you're going to end up kind of hitting a brick wall with that because your first step was not actually completed. And there is just simply not enough information to decide. So I just think that, I like the motives and I like the idea of religion. I just wish that people would be more honest about it. So whatever. But yeah, false preachers, nobody likes them because a lot of people, you have tons of people who write different opposing, contradictory scripture, and none of it, tracks with the other passage in question, right? And then people, are like, okay, well, who's right? And it's like, obviously somebody is in the wrong here, so somebody's got to fucking have the bus roll over them. And I get it. And there are people who do it with malicious intent. That's what my point is. I think people actually engage in writing these supposed false scriptures with the intent to fear monger and control people. That's what MSNBC has been doing for fucking 15 years. And that's what false preachers have been doing for a little longer than 15 years. So I agree with you. I agree with you there. But I hope you can understand and see and critically think about my critical thinking process for why I personally don't think religion is 100% proven. It could be provable. I don't really know the extent of how we can prove or what evidence we can unearth. It's possible. It's just not proven yet. And I don't see any proof to objectively 100% believe in a God. I understand why, but I don't agree with it. Right. And that's, to me, you have to explain why. You'd have to explain the deviations between your mindset and mine. However, with that said, I believe that the realist thing about religion is faith. Faith is a very real thing. That exists. And that's very frequently talked about. I believe it's the most frequently talked about thing, aside from like God and Jesus, those two. It's in third place in the top 3 list of most frequently talked about things in the Bible. And faith is very real. And faith helps you. You should have faith. Whatever you may have faith in. And I like Christians a lot more than I like the Islamic community. So, I'm going to break my logic a little bit and just say I'm going to speak directly to the Christian community, especially because more Christians than Islamists, to my knowledge, are in my chat right now. To the Christians out there, your faith helps you. And by all means, you must keep it. Because faith is as important to you in reality as the Bible says it does. That is where Christianity rings very true and where Christianity is very correct. You must have faith. Faith is very important, regardless of where you are in life. And if you don't have faith, gotta get it. So, now back to a less wholesome message. Provability is nullified, in my opinion. I disagree. I believe there are actual logical steps. Now, there are claims that are very hard to prove. That whole thing I talked about with last Thursdayism, right? Can you prove or disprove that the universe was created last Thursday? There is no way to prove it false. I understand that. And I am not denying the existence of unprovable claims. They exist. We might have ourselves one, and I am not exactly 100% on the extent to what we can prove. Technology is rapidly advancing. The fruits of our knowledge are rapidly advancing to a speed at which I can't even predict what we're going to know or be able to know next. The amount of shit that we know and are capable of is something I couldn't even predict it 5 years ago, much less many more years ago. However, with that said, I do believe that last Thursdayism is very different from the Bible because there are certain things and real human beings that are rumored to exist with artifacts that supposedly exist in the material world. That is, last Thursdayism is not rooted in anything that could be actually brought to a courtroom. There are things in the Bible that, if discovered and if true, could be brought to a courtroom. We have not found it. Absence of proof does not absence of proof does not equate to falsehood, right? That's a big misinterpretation that the crazy Christians tell me. People say that, like, because I am simply denying that proof exists, that is not me equating that to a falsehood. However, I do believe that a lot of the claims the Bible makes when it comes to people who existed and the things that those real people in our realm do, that can be proven through a process of discovery. So, if it exists, we might never find out. Same thing if it doesn't, because we're really experiencing one or the other. However, there is a possibility, and what I'm saying is that there is a universe where all of the material elements are the same. However, we could discover something that 100% objectively proves that this shit happened. And when you're saying provability is nullified, that also negates the point that other Christians make to me, which is like, supposedly it's 100% proven and done, objectively proven that God exists, right? So, and you never made that claim. So, I appreciate that. And you're saying, like, if you cannot have faith, it will not hold. I get that. And I agree with that. In fact, I agree with you a lot in this group chat. I just, I believe that a lot of the stuff and a lot of the claims in the Bible is, it is something that can be proven, and it has not been proven yet. Not enough information to decide. In my mind, it's 100% true that God exists. Right, but like the reality of it supposedly is that God exists outside of your mind. So you should be able to prove that he exists outside of that. Now, it might not be provable with the information we have, and it's not. However, the realm of your mind to me is invalid. So okay. But I don't expect Beta to believe somewhere. Yeah. No, exactly. And that's the intelligence that I'm looking for in a conversation about Christianity. So okay. Are you ready? Last piece. 3, 2, 1. Thank you so much for watching this super duper important episode of Eating a Sheet of Paper a Day. I appreciate it. No thesis. No thesis tonight. I want for you to possibly, if you're watching this back, rewatch and at least intake some. You can skim it. You can play it at 2 times the speed on your YouTube video player. But at least try to intake everything I say, because I don't want for this entire episode to be dumbed down by just one sentence. So there is no fucking thesis today. This entire paper stream is the thesis. All right. Thank you very much. I have to take a shit. I'll see you later. Goodbye.